M71408 says, what are your top 5 NFL running backs of all time?
Am I first?
You can go first. I went first on the last one. You can go first on the
Okay, Walter Payton, probably number 1. Number 2, Barry Sanders. I didn't get to see him, but from the highlights and everything else, I have to say Jim Brown. I put the first 2 guys not because they're better than Jim Brown, but because I got to see a lot of their stuff. I would put 4th probably O.J. Simpson, and then last I would probably have Adrian Peterson.
I would pretty much be really close to that, except for I would have Jim Brown number 2 behind Walter Payton. I would have Barry Sanders 3. I think I'd have OJ 4, and then I would have
I thought about other
honestly,
guys. I
honestly,
thought about
honestly,
LaDainian and Marshall Faulk, but I think
that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say Marshall
AP's
Faulk.
too much of a monster though. Like
But
AP
I would say Marshall Faulk because Marshall Faulk didn't have any weaknesses.
No.
AP had a glaring weakness. He was not a good receiver.
Right. And that's the thing though. Like when we say running back, do we mean at running? Because
No, we mean
okay,
that plays
just
the
like
position.
overall
Just
playing the
overall play the
position.
position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Marshall Faulk, I really do. He was a great runner, but he was in that Westbrook era, that Brian Westbrook era, where as a tailback you could really catch a lot and
Well,
get
I
it.
don't think it was the Westbrook era. I think it was the Falk era. I think Brian
No,
Westbrook
I'm
was living in the
saying,
Marshall Falk era.
I'm saying that at that time it was, that offense, because it's a copycat league, and that
Absolutely.
offense was something that the league was into at that time.
Well, and
Whereas,
it was really originated before them though with Roger Craig
yeah,
with the 49ers. The first do whatever 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving in the same season. So it kind of started with him, the West Coast offense, throwing the ball to the backs more. But Marshall Faulk took it to another level.
yeah. But if I had to choose which of those 2 players to just put on my team and build around it, I'd probably take AP because he's just a freak monster, and I know if I have a great quarterback and great receivers around that, you can't load up on him because he ain't been on
See,
the
here's my
greatest
thing.
teams.
Here's always my thing about running backs. First of all, I think running backs are generally the most overrated position in football. If you look at it, if you just take a look at how often do you ever see a truly great running back win a Super Bowl? It's rare. It's rare. Walter Payton won when Walter Payton won his Super Bowl. He was not even anywhere close to his prime. Walter Payton's prime is 75 through 77. It was 76 through 79. That's his absolute prime. That's when he's just, oh my God, right? No Super Bowl at that time. He had to win. He won one in 85 when he was not nearly the same guy. As great as Adrian Peterson was, no Super Bowls. As great as Barry Sanders was, no Super Bowls. And most people will tell you who's the best running back between Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith. Barry Sanders, more spectacular of an athlete, the whole 9. But Emmitt won the Super Bowls in a less spectacular fashion. Emmitt's an underrated guy. He's not in my top 5. He's an underrated guy because of his ability to pass block. He's
great.
His absolute, the rarity of fumbles for him, and just like he didn't do things spectacularly, but very rarely would you see the first guy bring Emmitt Smith down. Now, it wasn't going to be because he juked him, but it was because he plowed through a little bit, got an extra yard and a half, 2 yards. He was just a winning football player. And I think he was actually a little bit more of a winning football player than Barry Sanders, although Emmitt ran behind the greatest offensive line of the era, and that's a huge aspect of it.
And behind that offensive line, you got Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and everything else.
But Troy Aikman is actually a slightly above average quarterback who was very smart and had all kinds of weapons, and he had like I said, the fantastic offensive line. I would take a great offensive line over a great running back every day of the week.
I totally agree. But the question was about running backs. R5 was pretty much the same.
Yeah, for the most part. I put Marshall Faulk in there though.
Because I felt like AP and Marshall Faulk was kind of a pick 'em. But again,
honestly, I think Marshall Faulk
could
probably be higher on my list. Honestly, he probably should be more like 3rd. To be, I really, just as a guy who affected wins, losses, I think I don't know if there anybody besides Walter Payton
It's
affect me
hard
in
for me to
Florida more.
separate how great that offense was in St. Louis.
Yeah,
You know, they have so many weapons.
but he was the
Um,
best player, and he was the most versatile weapon.
he was, and that's why I said, you know, he's kind of on my list. You know, I wash between whether I want to pick him or AP, but I just kind of go with the freak.
Yeah, AP's a freak. I mean, he's the most. AP was just so fun to watch. He's just so fun to watch. Well, it is
Yeah.
so fun to watch. He's not retired, so
Right,
uh,
and part of me thinks like if you put AP on the St. Louis Rams, they might have won. You know,
it
two
won't be
more
the same
championships.
because you need that receipt. The fact that you could split Marshall out wide and create
Yeah,
those
no,
mismatches
yeah,
was
absolutely. I think that was
huge.
important.
It was huge.